No. It is what it is. So as you guys saw with the intro, we were talking about Judgment here, the Eternal Champions. And we're going to take a look here into that and why I'm into it. Now this is a game that I kind of got into kind of like out of the blue. So yeah, we'll get into it. We're going to talk about the lore. We're going to talk about the models, the stuff, why you should play, and so forth. So getting right in here into the lore section of what this game is. Judgment Eternal is a MOBA-inspired tabletop game. Think a mix of, a game like Zombicide or Arkham Asylum, stuff like that. Games that use miniatures to fight monsters and stuff, but in the style of more of a skirmish game like Killteam or the Apex board game that's going to be coming out here. That's basically what this game is. In a quick roundup, it is Heroes of the Storm on the tabletop in a awesome dark fantasy sort of world with a mix of cyberpunk, aetherpunk, sci-fi, and generic old school fashioned RPG elements. Going into the next section here, that was a quick intro of what this is. The lore of the game is what's one of the few points that sold it to me really well, because I find that in a game like this, especially if it's trying to be MOBA inspired, you gotta find that nice balance to where you balance lore and models, feeling different compared to what the actual game is. Like that lore balance, Warhammer games like Warhammer suffer from this a lot. Like there's the lore where things are god tier, but then when you play them on the table, they're super nerfed or something, or they're like the opposite. Something that should be super weak is super strong. So in a game like Judgment, and with its lore and writing, you'd think it wouldn't do a lot, but it actually does really well to sell what it is. That it's this arena of gods using champions throughout the multiverse to fight on their behalf to gain control over in this chaosy sort of realm, kind of like Warcry. Forgive me if I don't quite remember what most of the names are and lores and stuff in this game. I'm still learning it myself, but it is definitely a lot of fun. So that's the main premise. The gods are kind of what you use to kind of build your warband around, and they're your kind of, again, referencing another game, your stratagems are kind of your abilities that the gods of your chosen faction gives you. So, for example, in the starter box, as you'll see here in some pictures as the B-roll goes through, you get Ista and Krognar. Forgive me if I say those wrongs. Two gods that are basically polar opposites of each other. In this game, all the gods are not necessarily bad or good. It all really depends on your vision of their views. Gods usually give you one or two passive abilities. They give you a ability that you can activate that's kind of like your ultimate, your Q or whatever, Q of the game, depending on what sort of MOBA you're playing. And usually also have a sweet little bonus for if you're playing with the avatar of your warband, which we will get into what warbands are and stuff like that and how the rules play here. Part of the video where we're going to take a look at the miniatures and kind of little parts of it and the cards and details and stuff. So there's quite a few things I want to show here. Starting off with, we have one of the minis that I have painted from the starter box itself. Here he is. This is Donargar. He is a Minotaur. This is in that plastic I'll be talking about later on in the video / beginning. This is that board game resiny plastic, rubber plastic. Still looks really good for what it is. And then next to him we have in painted resin. This is from their main resin line, Thorgar. This is the other Minotaur that I would recommend if you want to play Minotaurs. He's a big axe boy, and as you can potentially see, there's a lot more detail in the fur. The face is a lot more smoother. Let me put it down. The face is a lot more smoother, more detailed muscles, and fingers. If you want to see kind of what they look like unpainted, we have one of their newest models here. This is Ramona. She's a vampire in their a newer resin. and she looks beautiful. This is one of their best models they've made in looks, in my opinion, so far. I've yet to see Yasmin, which is the one I want to get, and the Goblin Twins that came out. And usually when you buy these models, they'll come with, if they have abilities that, you know, mark other enemies or themselves, they'll come with little tokens like this, made out of the same resin, which if it's a unique ability to them, will kind of have their face on it. Or if it's a generic one, they'll have like something like this, which, like, you know, gas form, ghost form, little ghost. In the starter box, you will have tokens, which leads us to these two right here. This is the Fate and the Souls token. There's a male and female versions of these. I'll talk about these later in the video when I go over the rules, and you'll see and learn about those. Along with, we have the other one, which you get these online through their app for free, or you can buy it through drive-through TCG. These are the data cards. So we have the, you know, their main stats, their, you know, their major ones, their combat stats, movement, dodge ability, how much damage resistance, which gods they go to, and, you know, combat, their basic attacks, along with, you know, their starting abilities, their health and cool character cards for their levels, and then you usually get three, you know, like 3 more cards that represent, you know, stats and level up abilities and things like that. We'll have the dice, which again I'll talk about later on in the show here, which we have your, you know, your to hit, your judgment, which is the J, or usually a god symbol if you buy the dice, a blank, and your movement. You get 2 sets of, I think, 12, a black set and a white set, so you and your opponent can each use one. And of course, you know, you roll it, and oh, you got a hit and a maneuver. So that's models. Now coming back here again, I am back in the room. We are going to be talking quickly about the rules. So how this game is played is you use a hex-based grid. There's a small one that they make officially for a 3v3, or a larger one if you want to do multiple teams of people, or 5v5s. And what do I mean by 5v5, 3v3s, or even how do you get your warbands for those who might play other war games? So the game, how it is constructed, is you choose your god. This is, again, what representing you on the field. It's your sort of spawn point, your heart stone, whatever you want to call it, the thing that the enemies rush in after destroying towers to go, you know, kill. And that's how you win in most objectives. So in this game, you choose a warband or a squad, or whatever you want to call it. But in this game, they are called warbands. Usually, if you're doing a 3 versus 3, that means models, not players. If you're doing a 3v3, you choose 5 models that you like, that you think would work together in your warband, and your opponent does the same. I'll get to why you're choosing 5 over 3, I'll get there. You choose those, and then you take turns, depending on how you determine who chooses first. I believe it's mostly a dice roll. You choose whoever won, chooses one of the models your opponent chose to bring, and you get to basically deny them it. You basically tell them, no, you can't use them for this game. Then the one who didn't get to choose gets to choose one of those models. You do it basically back and forth. And then on the second model, depending on your game mode, you choose what model you don't want to bring in response to them doing that, and then vice versa. And then you should be left with 3 models. This works the exact same way for 5v5. You just bring 7 models instead of, 5. There's another game mode that I really like, which is really good for beginners, which I was learned by one of the guys that we will hear from time to time in here during an interview that I did with them, called Deathmatch. It's a 5v5 or a 3v3 if you want to do it that way. It's one's really good for beginners. One I'd recommend you guys play before if you want to try it out. But it's the same ideas. You choose, your 5 models. You axe 2 of them to get put to the side. And instead of when a model dies and comes back, the model that dies is permanently dead for the game, and you get to bring in one of the models that died from the side. And the winner is whoever has, killed the effigy, which is the thing, your shrine, your effigy is your symbol, or you only have one hero left. So in your turn, you'll get three activation points or AP, which you can use to basically do anything as many times as you want, unless it states otherwise. Or I think charging is the only exception to this, where you can't do it multiple times. Each hero is super unique and awesome. They'll have on their data sheets, which are free online through their app, or you can buy the cards through drive-through TCG, which are constantly updated. They just pull from the PDF off their website, or you can print them yourselves if you want to make your own cards. And they'll tell you what abilities they have at what their level is. And as you move through the board and fight and stuff and roll your dice, your characters will level up. You'll get souls, you'll get fate, and yeah, you'll just keep going till you win. Dice in this system don't use the traditional D6. They use these special dice. And I'll probably have pictures of them. I'll have pictures of them here. Get some B-roll of me doing the turns. So you'll have these special D6, which have special sides on them. If you played a game like X-Wing and stuff, you'll kind of, or Star Wars Legion, you'll kind of know the idea. They are D6s. Some characters might require a certain combination of those dice that you've rolled face up. So say if you rolled 3 dice, one was a J, a circle, and a hit. You might have an ability on your card that requires you to have 2 movement, maneuver dice, or a crit and a maneuver. And then that's how you can do it. Leading to that, when you get into combat, you basically, and this is another real good thing I like about it, is you take the 2 opposing stats and you minus the dice from each other to get the amount of dice you roll, and that's all you need to know to play this game. That's the core mechanic of the game, and I really like it for that. So, say if you have an attack of 8, like a melee characteristics, and you're swinging with a sword, so melee of 8, and your opponent's defensive stat, which is usually agility, is a 4, you would minus 4 from your dice pool, and you'd roll the remaining, which would be 4, because your melee characteristic was 8. You then roll those 4 dice, you take a maximum of 3. No matter how many dice you roll, you can only ever use 3 of those dice. You choose the combination that you want. So say if you rolled a hit and a J and 2 maneuvers, you could say, take the 2 maneuvers and the J, or the judgment, to do a couple of maneuvers and maybe an ability, so you don't really do much damage. Or if say your character doesn't really have a lot of cool maneuver stuff, or you just want to do damage, you probably want to take the judgment dice, the J, and the swords, and then maybe just eat the maneuver dice, maybe do nothing with it, or step back 1 if your turn's about to end. And then you just keep going back and forth between characters until everyone's done, and then you reset the round to the next one and do all your cool stuff there. So the sub mechanic of this game, the one that's kind of like the secondary objectives, how you can win, the other way of winning is through souls. Souls are resources, kind of like mana or currency, or in other MOBAs like League of Legends, where you'd have the jungle area where you go and fight monsters and stuff. These are kind of like that, or they're the towers that you would fight in lanes so that you can push up to your enemies, like Soulstone or whatever it's called. I don't really play League of Legends. These things are kind of like that in the idea of what it represents in its goal. So these will spawn depending on your map in certain spots. Every character has an ability called Soul Harvest. You use this to, suck up the soul, and if you get 4 or more, you win, because souls permanently decrease the health of your opponent's effigy. If you're able to take them back to your spot and put them into your effigy, they are permanently there and they cannot be stolen unless some ability happens. Now, if you have them on your character, they still count towards that permanent damage, and some heroes even get bonuses for having souls. But be warned, if you die with a soul on you, unless stated otherwise, you lose all souls that character has, and the one that killed it gets its soul. Its resource. Every hero counts for a soul if it's killed. Now, Fate are kind of the opposite side of this thing. Fate is a resource that is used in a lot of things. This is where you get your ultimate abilities on your characters, rerolls, stopping charges, healing, all this stuff. It's a major resource in the game that you kind of have to keep an eye on. In itself, when you actually play it, is not complicated at all. It's very simple, actually. There's like 3 or 4 things you can do with it. And you're gonna constantly, it's a thing, unlike stratagems in other games, you're not gonna get over flooded with them. You're not gonna like, how do I use it? When do I use it? This basically floods it to being like 3 choices, and it boils down, mostly the hardest part of it is thinking 3 steps ahead in when you should actually use it. Neighbors, forgive me if you hear noises. So Fate is kind of a resource that takes some skill to kind of, learn when to use it, but it's not complicated how to use it. And you get Fate by killing bounties for the monsters on the board, getting shrines, which can be spawned on the field depending on the size of the game, and having souls at the beginning of the next turn. So, getting close here, getting to the end of this video, why I would choose Judgment over other games, especially for beginners, and why I would recommend playing it. The game itself is very easy to learn compared to other games. It combines this nice balance of role play, board game, and skirmish game all into one, making a nice focal start point for all categories of tabletop gamers to come together to play a game and kind of have a little taste of everybody's pie, as you can say. If you have some friends who maybe have played D&D for a couple of bits, especially during, the dark eras of 2020 to 22, this is going to be an awesome game for them to try to get into it, especially since those who might see, 40K and stuff like that and want to get into Killteam. This is a great alternative to that. It's a game that's self-contained, has beautiful models made by some of the best monster making model company out there in the current field, next to like one other. But they are, the quality, even in their Soicast, Plascast, the stuff that they make for board game minis, like modern day CMON sort of board game miniatures from Zombicide, beautiful sculpts. So if you want to get into a game where you can play with your normie friends or those who are getting in from D&D or Warhammer and enjoy painting models, playing a lore-rich world, cool heroes and characters that you can just collect and not worry about, feats, skills, army composition, buying gear and war gear and all this stuff. Playing it your unique way, making it your own. Game is awesome for that. It's like the Gloomhaven of skirmish games. It is a game that you can take, you can play, and if you really like this style of game, then you can get into the larger picture of other miniature war games out there, while still keeping this on the side. How I personally seen it, I saw it as the commander of skirmish games. I can keep all my models in this box, and when I have friends come over, we can pull it out, play a quick 30-minute game, and then once the rest are here for D&D or other things that we're doing, maybe going out, I just pack the box back up. And in that 30 minutes, it was like the fun and action-packedness of like a 2-hour awesome game, like a narrative game of bolt action for me. It's a lot of fun. So basically, what I'm trying to say here in this TLDR is, if you want an amazing taste of skirmish without the dedication, the cost, while also still having the fun of a competitive game, and maybe you've liked back in the day, or you thought you liked, as League of Legends players. I'm not dissing on anyone. But if you liked Heroes of the Storm, or you liked that MOBA style game, and you love fantasy, and you wanted to play a skirmish game that didn't cost an arm and a leg, while still enjoying that field, Judgment is definitely the #1 game for that is currently out that I'm aware of, and I will never not recommend this game to anybody who wants to play it. There is only one exception to this, and that is if you wanted a sci-fi version, which then I would say check out the Apex board game when it finally ships out next year. If you don't want necessarily a fantasy MOBA, but maybe you want a sci-fi battle royale, Apex Legend is the exact same. This game and Apex Legend are like fighting for first for my favorite games. So it goes, if you want battle royale sci-fi shooter that is basically just like Halo Firefight, Warhammer Killteam, go Apex Legend. The game is so good. if you want your fantasy war games, your skirmish, your Sigmars, your D&D combat, you know, League of Legends, Judgment is the best game on the market for that. So those are the 3 games I recommend, but this video is Judgment, so we're going to focus on that. And with that, I'm going to give it my ratings here. All in all, I'm going to say it is for the starter box itself, I'm going to say it is out of 5, it is a 4. I'm going to say it's about a 4 or a 3.5, depending on your views on this. And I'll go into the things why. Its pros are it's great for its cost, simple to get into, hard to master, but in a good way. Beautiful models, greatly supported, and the mats are just awesome in like the idea of like the grid-based system, and it's just plug and play MOBA. The cons, I would have to say, is there a couple of models in the starter box, like mostly the human ones. So the necromancer guy, it might be hard to see. This dude and the elf lady, Cyan. His name starts with a Z, I can't remember. Their facial features are, at least in my casts, are kind of very ucky. And when I was painting Cyan, her nose came off. Like literally just a brush and the nose plinked off. It was not great molds for that case. But the rest of their body was okay. But the rest of the other models, like Brock the Dwarf or Dugar the Giant Minotaur, beautiful models. And their resin versions, their resin counterparts, are way superior, and they even have slightly different poses, so you're not buying the exact same model. The other con I can have in this is you get the mat, which is it's like a nice play mat, like a Magic play mat, art on one side and the grid on the other. Now, I personally like having the art on the one side just because I'm going to start using those mats now for when I do photo shoots or when I do review videos, or if I just have guests coming over and they want to play Magic, I can put it down and have it. But for the larger one, it's, and especially if we want to play that larger 5v5 game mode, you have to go buy that mat separate. There's not another mat that I could have, like at least in the starter box, having it double-sided. And again, it's not really a con to me. This is just a con to put in for the con section. Besides that, the other thing I can think of is you get cards in here. You get data cards for all the characters that are in here, which then leads you to a false sense that the other characters that you buy separately are going to have them also, which they do not. So overall, for its cost, quality, fun factor, and quantity, as I kind of loosely I go off, quality, quantity, cost, and fun / it's writing, it's lore based off this is like the category that's based off what it is. So for board games, it's like fun. RPGs, it's rules and like ease of access. For war games stuff, it's like a lore, models, stuff like that. For this, I give it about a 4. If I can give any suggestions on what I'd recommend to change this, is maybe going on in the future, when you make more world maps based off the different, like gods, and have them double-sided for the amount of cost you're going to charge for it. The other thing I can recommend, and I'd love to see for again, you're paying for beautiful custom, like beautiful miniatures, especially in the resins, that are cheaper than most Games Workshop models. But I would like to see for their cost, even if it's like maybe $1 or $2 more, the cards printed in the case with them. They do come in these really nice white cardboard boxes that have beautiful art on it. Says their logo, their slogan, which is, gaming for adults. I would like to see those cards come in those boxes with them. With that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed some of the B-roll here, and we will see you guys in the next one, which hopefully is either going to be a Conquest video or the year in review. But yeah, get this game, guys. It's so good. Staff who support this game are awesome. The models are some of the best on the market, if not the best on the market for what they make. And they're always constantly they have it constantly supporting their Discord, which has free online versions of this game, so you can play with people if you can't find people yourself to play with. And they're constantly making stuff and taking feedback from players and YouTubers like us who want to see this game grow with stuff that might be coming up to get into the game a lot easier. Now, if this big game itself, which is awesome, this big awesome game is too much for you, You can buy all the characters in the starter box, plus more on their web store. On the side, you basically pay for half the cost of this to get your warband, which is just 3 models, the minimum you need to play. I recommend getting 5, so that way you can have, try it out a little bit. The app is free online, so you can see what the gods are like and what their avatar is. You're basically the named HQ or leader model that has the cool bonus for that god. But you're not restricted to what models have to be with which models. It's just flavor at that point and who the avatar is. Then you just basically get one of these boyos, a little case like this, put those models in there, and print, have the app, and you are good to go with any basically hex-based map. You might have some issues with the basing because they're like 40 millimeters or something like that. But if somebody else has the core set, or your local game store, they're usually sent stuff like this to support them. You can just grab one of these little cases, grab your 5 models, and get to playing right away. But yeah, with all in all, I've rambled enough. I'm gonna go. I gotta go play more Judgment. More Judgment! Brrr. Click the video. Click it. Click the video. You know you want to. Click it. Love the idea of the grid system. I know I heard from seeing online that people are like, before, when you guys were sending out models, that there wasn't a grid. But then when I got the maps, and they were like that nice like magic playing card mats, I was impressed with that. And then the back has art. That was sick.
Yeah. So it's really vibrant. The colors punch on the back art. I was shocked.
So you can thank me. I have to take credit for the hex thing. Because when we got the game originally, my business partner was basically saying, "Oh, hey, check, I'll run you a demo." And the push mechanic is key to this game, right? And pushing 1 inch multiple times almost broke me. And I was like, that's stupid, basically. Like, I'm like, it's so, I like the mechanic, but it's really annoying to do. Right?
It's a momentum killer for sure.
It's a momentum killer, exactly. Like, seeing they're trying to measure 1 inch. And if you off measure, the game is not even strategic anymore, right? Because like if someone moved an inch and a half, it will change everything, right? So I was like, that's a really dumb. It's a cool mechanic, but it's really dumb. So that's what was one of the big changes, was my irritation with moving 1 inch like spaces, right? The neoprene mat is great. The only and I appreciate that you value the double stitch quality. It's a really nice quality mat. I'm a little bit annoyed that they didn't put a secondary map on the back. I'm like, yeah.
I find that that's a blessing and a curse. On the on like the 3v3 map, I would definitely agree. I'd love to have seen different maps, maybe like a winter one plus the other one.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Then, but on the large one, I actually like having the art on the other side, because if, say, I have a gaming table at home I permanently have set up, I can leave the art side face up, so people can come play Magic or build models and stuff.
Well, I love the fact that you bring such a positive to the thing, right? Like, so I'm glad, but that's one of my deep-seated resentments of not having a secondary map on the other side.
That is fair. If mine can just be a very specific case, that's why I like it. But I could definitely agree with you too. If there was another map on the other side also, I'd also be down for that too.
Yeah. I think that's what the thought was. My business partner really wanted to show off some of the cool art, right? So he's very artistically minded for that. So I appreciate that you value that anyways, right?
I think it stands out. I'm totally with Will on this one too.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to lose this battle for sure, because
it's really high quality too. It's not blurry. It's very sharp.
Totally.
Colors are really punchy.
I'm all about. Yeah, I'm more of a gamer than I am partially artist for sure, but like design in gaming is one of the key elements for me. Right?
I think then the next mat you guys make, definitely do it double-sided. But for this one as it is, I love it. It's multi-purpose. It's great for when I shoot videos.
Yeah. Well, one negative of shooting videos is it doesn't read very well on videos. That's why we have to come up with a good video read map as well too. That's one of the things we noticed as well too with the design. It looks kind of cool because it's supposed to be this wasteland with soul energy going through it. But one of the things we noticed as a note, Andrew, too, was like it's hard to read for video content, right? So
big time. The colors do not pop out at all. It blends into itself.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the things we need to adjust to when we'll have to get a mat made for video shooting in the future. So that was the social engagement part.